right. Thank you so much for making time for yet another edition of The Bottom Line right here on Lookup TV. My name, as always, is Eugene Andango. It's been a very interesting week that just ended, and of course, lots to unpack right here on the program. We'll be talking about a very interesting conversation right here. A president at Loggerheads with his deputy and other short stories as far as politics is concerned. My guest in studio, none other than Mark Bechachi, political commentator, or if you like, he can also probably refer to himself as a political strategist. We'll be able to get to know more about that in the course of the program. Mark, thank you for making time.
You're most welcome.
Also with us is Betty Adera. She is the KANU Women Congress National Chairperson. Betty, karibu sana.
My pleasure.
Right. Of course, in absentia as of now is Joe Halende, who is a political analyst. He'll be joining us later on in the course of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, I think one of the things that I wanted us to first start off with, there's been a lot being said, and of course, no one needs to be told that the president and his deputy are not reading from the same book. And the question, probably, let me start with Betty, because where I come from, I was taught well that ladies first, they go first. Betty, I want to hear from you, from Chama ya Baba na Mama. I mean, what do you read? Are you feeling like, you know, there is cause for alarm, or this is just the usual politics and politics of the country?
Thank you. And first of all, I just want to reiterate the fact that the KANU party is in the coalition agreement with the Jubilee Party. So politically speaking, we are in the same boat and we speak, you know, from the same side. Now, back to the question around His Excellency the President and his deputy not reading from the same script. And it's been a while when, I mean, Kenyans have been treated to that kind of a narrative. A very unfortunate one, if you ask me. But again, every single day we see like divorce proceedings, you know? It's like a divorce proceeding, and every day there's this new thing, but we are already seeing clearly that the two gentlemen are not reading from the same script. What I would want to say is that the head of state, the head of government, the leader of the Republic of Kenya has the responsibility, you know, to lead all of us towards the vision that he laid out for us to move us as a people from point A, you know, to point B. And having said that, it then behooves everybody around him, including his own deputy, to act within the shared vision, you know, of moving this country as a ruling coalition from one point to another, the way they told all Kenyans in 2013 and also in 2017.
Right.
We're looking at just a couple of months left, you know, of this administration, and the question begs then that which way forward. I just want to say also that we have a lot of history as a country that the two gentlemen can learn from, and especially the deputy.
Yeah.
You know, there have been previous deputy presidents or vice presidents, if you like, since independence until now. And looking at how they acted, how they behaved, how they conducted, you know, their businesses within their space, you know, of being the number two in command, there's a lot of learning and history that we can lean on. But when you come out as the number two in command, but you want to look like you are telling Kenyans what? That the number one is not as good or good enough, and you are the one, then that's, of course, you know, a big problem right there.
Right.
When you run, you know, like parallel programs, when you come out to look like you're setting up your own parallel systems, then that's a problem. When every other little integrity case, you know, touches you or touches people very close to you, and we know the place of corruption, you know, in this country, and how corruption has, you know, eroded the gains that we have had in this country since independence, and everything that comes up, you know, in the limelight by the whistleblower, somehow you are directly or indirectly you know, connected to that, then I think that's a problem, because then the president will ask himself, how will I tell Kenyans that I promised that we'll do everything in our power to ensure that, say, corruption cases are dealt with, and it's your deputy that's dragging you behind.
Right. Mark, when you listen to Betty speak, she mentioned in her opening remarks that KANU is definitely part or has a coalition pact with the ruling government. And we've talked about, the president and his deputy being at loggerheads. From what she says, do you read that, the side of the coalition that she is in, is it obvious that this is the coalition that, or the side that is actually pushing away the deputy president? Does the deputy president also hold any water with the statements that he makes? Is he genuine? Is it reasonable from how he speaks, looking at how he says or feels is being treated within the party that he ran for twice in 2 elections?
This question is a logical question.
Yeah.
And the logical question is this. Is William Ruto being pushed away? Or did William Ruto pull away and then claim he's being pushed away? Now let us look at the facts as they bear. Number one, I remember very clearly that in between the 2 elections of 2017, the president said he will not talk to Raila until the elections had been done. Therefore, every person who voted for the president voted saying, one of the promises you've given me is to talk to Raila after the elections. And so the president talked to Raila in his capacity as president, in his capacity as leader of Jubilee, and in his capacity as the man in charge in this country of the unity of the country. From that point onwards, what we saw is William slowly and surely beginning to be the opposite of everything Uhuru Kenyatta stood for.
Is that genuine? I mean, whatever he does, even if it is opposite, but is there some genuine or logic in his actions?
We're going somewhere.
Yes.
Let me finish the journey so
Yes.
that, because I need to explain the history, because whenever we approach this topic, Kenyans are so emotional that they have thrown reason out of the window. So when we look at the chronology, then we see what makes sense. So in doing a handshake with Raila and later with Gideon and later with Kalonzo and all of these people, there is no point the president said then that I am replacing William with Raila. It never happened.
But Mark, akufukuzaya kuambi toka. This is what they argue.
Let me finish. You see, and this is the problem, that when you try to explain the history, the people who have Ruto emotions in their heart, Tangatangaism, jump to the conclusion. Let me tell you, the truth of the matter is this, that Uhuru Kenyatta set out an agenda. William Ruto has at every turn been on the opposite side of that agenda. So the question is, alifukuzwa ama alijitoa? Because William Ruto is the only person in Kenya who I know will cause a problem, solve it himself, finish, and then thank God.
Okay.
Because the fact is, William Ruto has been the thorn in Uhuru Kenyatta's side all of the last 3.5 years. But if he shows up on TV, even if he showed up here today, he will say how he is loyal to the president. But my question is, how are you loyal to a president whose agenda you don't support?
Right. Let me put a few points.
In fact, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Imagine if your wife said she's loyal to you, but every man, munakosana na every man who does a bad business deal with you, like Sonko, you find her in bed with that man every time. So question, will you be the one who chased away your wife, or your wife was just too available to your enemies?
I will answer that question the day I'll find that happening. But in the meantime, Betty, let me come to you. Let's reason a bit and try to look at the way things have been happening or the way things have been unfolding. There are many instances where the deputy president and even people within his circles have actually said or felt that there's a lot of bullying or humiliation being subjected on the deputy president. In fact, in one of the interviews on one of the TV stations, he actually mentioned that if he became president, he would not subject his deputy to such ridicule and shame that he has gone through himself. Would such a man, a very powerful man in such a position, be just lying to Kenyans, between his teeth, to just say that I've been bullied, I've been pushed away, when he has not?
Like I said earlier, the divorce proceedings in the courtroom, remember that courtroom is in the public domain. And in politics, perception actually matters. And perception, can sway someone to think in a certain direction. And let me go back to the corruption issues. All right? A couple of those are even live, in court right now as we speak. We have His Excellency the President on record, having fired some of the close allies of his own deputy on grounds of corruption. But remember, when corruption happens, who really is the one suffering? It is the Wanjiku. It is the me and the you and the Mama Mboga and that youth who doesn't have a job and all these people, right? So, I mean, when someone creates his own narrative saying that his boss, is harassing him or not treating him right, for me the question begs, when did this rain start beating you? Remember, you're number 2 in command. Number 1 is not crazy, to come up one day and just say that I don't want to work, closely with this one. But what is it?
But going by the court, decisions that we've seen, the annulment of some of the decisions made by the president, the head of state himself, we have seen left, right, and center some of those, decisions being declared null and void, and we are here saying that the number 1, quote unquote, is not crazy. If we go by what the courts say...
Let me ask, are we talking about oranges or apples?
Exactly.
Because you're mixing issues.
No,
because unless
the question here is...
No, wait, let me correct you.
Let me finish what I was saying.
Let's have Betty finish first.
Mixing issues.
Yes.
Your question was what?
Yes.
The perception that number 2 is claiming that he is being harassed by none other than his own boss. And that is in the public domain, and the public have taken, positions depending on which side you come from. But I'm just trying to say that there are factual things that we also know in the public domain that have actually contributed to this sorry scenario. If you are number 2 in command and you are supposed to move with me in one direction to take Kenya from here, to here, and you are the chief king when it comes to matters corruption, what did you expect the president
to do? Let me clarify. As I clarify that particular question, or why I asked that particular question, there is a scenario where the deputy president seems to be seeing that there are decisions that the head of state is actually making or is supporting that seem unconstitutional in his own right. For example, the BBI process. Remember when the judges made that declaration against the BBI, remember what the deputy president said, that, we are a country that is lucky, that God loves us because of the support that probably the constitution is now going to be having in that particular case. The question that I asked in that sense was, are we seeing a man who's trying to say, let me stand in the gap where the president seemed not to be taking the country or the direction the country is being taken by the head of state? I want to stand in that particular gap. Is this what you see him trying to do?
I think you've taken quite a bit of tanga juice, so let me bring you back to where we don't tanga. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. The president does not decide without cabinet. Cabinet includes the deputy president. The decisions made by the head of state are put to a vote in cabinet. And therefore, one of the biggest issues you should have with a statement like that from a deputy is this, that every budgetary decision, every executive order comes from cabinet under the hand of the president as chair. Now you tell me, what is the principal guiding cabinet? It's called collective responsibility. When a decision is made by cabinet, you don't come out of it and say, sio mimi. That is the same. And I'll give you an example of a family again. If the father decides to buy a car because he got a new job, and then 6 months later he gets fired and they need to sell the car, it is not the wife to come and say, Mungu anatupenda, hiyo gari hata siku anataka. Let me tell you, this is the kind of duplicity that we've entertained from the deputy president for far too long. Because it is disingenuous. It is a bold-faced lie to stand before the people of Kenya and say that you're loyal to them and to the presidency, and you're totally against what the president is doing and say. Number two, I will remind you, because it is still within living memory, Brexit, when Theresa May was prime minister, when a minister disagreed with her, he resigned. If the deputy president indeed feels that the president is a constitutional criminal and the president is misleading this country, why then would he continue to sit in the position of principal assistant when he woefully disagrees? It is not true that you can say you stand on principle and then sit in that office whose job it is to support what the president is doing. So if indeed what you're saying is true, and Ruto is this altruistic, caring person who feels deeply about a constitution he did not support in 2010, who feels deeply about the law and justice, yet this same person will not resign on principle or will not return Weston Hotel. I don't understand. How can you own Weston and then at the same time tell us about constitutionalism, and then at the same time tell us how God loves us and you, and then at the same time tell us how are you going to be a follower of Jesus if you cannot do what Zacchaeus did? If you can admit before BBC that indeed Weston was gotten wrongly, why would you not do what Zacchaeus did and give back what you've taken illegally? If we want to pontificate him and show him as the righteous person he is, let us look at his fruits.
I think it's time now to bring in Joe Halende. He's just joined us right now. Joe, thank you so much for making time. And before you came in, the person you really support strongly has been under fire, just like you've heard in the last statement from Mark Chache. I want to hear your thoughts. The deputy president, it's not rocket science that they are at loggerheads with the president, the head of state. Will he resign? Shall he resign? Should he resign?
Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry for being late because of the jam. But straight to your question, we are human beings. We are not perfect. We disagree to agree. And at the end of the day, let us disagree on principles. And among the issues that the deputy president is having with very many people, including the president, is on principle. That as a country, we went into an election, and the Jubilee government promised Kenyans certain things. And among them, it was to unite Kenyans. And that's why Jubilee Party was formed after the collapse of 12 political parties. So Jubilee as a party had already brought Kenyans together. And its other agenda was the Big Four agenda, which Jubilee was supposed to deliver and transform the lives of Kenyans. After election, the main competitor disagrees with the results, goes to court, we go for another election, he doesn't participate. He claims that the country is divided. The country is not inclusive. And yet, the party that is in power was built on the foundation of bringing Kenyans together. And Mark Bichachi is one of the Kenyans who are within Jubilee. He comes from the Mulembe nation. So you cannot say they were not included. Because under the constitution, we are forming when you are forming a government, you are forming a government with the mind that you are forming a government to represent all Kenyans from all walks of life. Then these people create a narrative that the country is divided, that the government is not inclusive, so we need inclusion through BBI. Then you change the priorities of the government from Big Four to BBI. The whole country is taken into a circus for over 3 years with this thing called BBI. What do you expect if you are in the shoes of the deputy president? You promised Kenyans this. Along the way, you change and turn around and claim that BBI is now the priority.
And that's the
BBI
question.
was the priority of two people. That is His Excellency the President and Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. Not the priorities of Kenyans.
And that's why Mark is asking.
Kenyans,
Mark is asking. He's asked a very important question, which I would like you to tie into your statement.
Yes.
You genuinely address some of the issues that you feel are actually a thorn in the flesh of the deputy president and where he sits. But the question is, why wouldn't he then step aside or resign from the system that seems to be doing the contrary of what he believed in the first place?
The issue is not about stepping aside. As Mark had said, that is the principal assistant to the president. If you are a principal assistant, your work is majorly advising the president. And if you advise somebody and somebody decides that your advice is not needed, what do? So you keep quiet. You leave the person to do his work,
But
and you do the other work. You see,
Have been quiet.
you see,
Walk away.
for heaven's sake, we are Africans, and in African tradition, divorce is not highly advisable. Divorce is not highly advisable.
Betty loves
So we are
so
Africans.
cheekily in that. I
We
mean,
are
why Betty?
Africans.
Why?
You
Well,
see,
if divorce is not acceptable in
not
an
acceptable
in
is
an-
not highly
is not
advised.
highly advised in
Yes.
an African context.
Let's hear from Betty. Yes.
Then why is the deputy president and the principal to His Excellency, as you correctly put it, treat us to drama after drama after drama every single day about how unhappy he is, yet we all know, factually speaking, that if you want to talk about corruption matters, the king of corruption is this same individual we are talking about, taking away from women, taking away from young people, taking away from the growth of this country, and then come back and say that, hey, it is my boss, it is my boss. Yet he, as you correctly say, the principal assistant to the president, why is he not towing the line? Why is he not running in the same vision and mission of His Excellency, the President, and decisions that are collectively made at that high level in government?
Before I continue, let me address one thing. This narrative about corruption and William Ruto. This narrative was started long time ago, and it was to achieve a certain goal. And one thing that I can assure my fellow panelists is this, that whenever an election is held, corruption does not affect how people make a decision in an election period. In 2017, Jubilee government, the office of the president, was among the top 5 of highly corrupt offices. But 8 million Kenyans voted for Jubilee. Then, on the next issue about corruption, I'm a student of law. If you accuse somebody continuously, you must produce evidence. And in a court of law, they will judge somebody depending on facts and evidence. William Ruto is always accused of corruption in funerals, in the public barazas, and in chamas. But he has never been accused of corruption in any court of law in this country and punished. For simple reason. The president said that this country loses around 2 billion each day. Recently, And among the people who are in court today for the corruption cases during this Kamata period, William Ruto is not one of them. Because this is a narrative to try and paint William Ruto. You know, if you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name. And it was always a scheme. You see, at the end of the day, this thing was not about anything else. And time has revealed, because the other day, the president said he will endorse one of the NASA principles, not one of the person within Jubilee. And if the deputy president was a problem within Jubilee, and the president felt that he cannot hand over the baton to His Excellency, the deputy president, he could have handed it to SG Tuju or Mudade, who are within Jubilee. If the president believed in the founding principles of building Jubilee Party and having a party, a national party that will outlive his presidency.
That's fair enough. But then, Mark, I know you want to come in, but I need you to also add on to this while you're answering. The legacy that President Uhuru Kenyatta will leave is that of a country in debt crisis. This is what has been said time and again by those who have been criticizing the president's leadership. But the question is it fair for this to be said just of the president alone without mentioning also the deputy president? Because these are two people who ran on the same ticket, ran under the same manifesto. Why is it that we have quotas that say that President Uhuru Kenyatta is leading the country to the wrong direction? He's tolerating corruption within government, is not obeying court orders and all those kind of things. And so he has led the country into a deep mess without tagging along the tag team that he ran with. Is that fair?
You know, one of the things that I have to take my hat off to the Tanga Brigade is their ability to push a narrative, whether it has legs or not. And I want to deconstruct what my good friend Joe has said. Number one, he said that uniting the country was complete by 2017. Let us take his idea to be true. Then how was it united? Jubilee was an idea of two people. One a former Minister of Education and Agriculture, one a former Deputy Prime Minister. And they came together, two people, and they decided to form two people, Jubilee. The same way two people came up with BBI. But when the other person is William Ruto uniting the Kalenjin to the Kikuyu, that is the right thing. But when it is a Luo called Raila Odinga uniting the Luo to the Kikuyu, no, it's just the idea of two people. Those are the logical fallacies within Tangaism. Then we get into another easily disprovable issue. We forgot Big Four, we went into BBI. Joe, tell me, how many dams are currently in construction in Kenya? The answer is 16. The only two not being constructed are in Aurora and Kimwarer. I will not mention on whose side Aurora and Kimwarer was swallowed whole. If we say the Big Four is dead, I know of people who have houses today under the housing program, and the other houses that have not been delivered. It is not because the government is unwilling to do it. It is because there's a court case that stopped it. If we go into manufacturing, have we forgotten that ICDC, Kenya Pipeline, all of these institutions are being rewired? I happen to also sit on a board of Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, and I can tell you for a fact that during the COVID pandemic, Kenya exported more tea, more coffee during that same period. If you want to take an indicator and tell me that the Big Four is forgotten, tell me, how did I get from Karen to this place in that short period of time if the infrastructure within the city of Nairobi is not changing? Tell me, is the road to Mandera not being built? The road to Turkana not being built? Tell me which markets, which part of this country doesn't have our markets changing?
The ports.
The ports, the port of Kisumu, the railways.
So all they're saying is just politics.
Let me tell you, this is the problem of joining Tanga, is you must speak a narrative even if it is a lie. Which part of the big four today is dead?
Joe,
are we saying? Let me finish. I even wrote notes. Let me finish.
Yes.
Okay.
So that he doesn't skip his mind.
Yeah, you see, he raised issues.
Yes.
So let me address each of his issues.
Yes.
So on big four, that's a bold-faced lie. And I keep saying, governments can chew gum, walk, and talk at the same time. This idea, if you do BBI, the president can't even breathe because nothing else is happening in the country, is a lie. In fact, the people who should tell us what they do in this country, other than campaign all the time, is crazy. Now, when he says there are no cases, Weston is a done and completed case. Mzemteshi's land, done and completed case. Or was his case done after the post-election violence to get his 100 acres? Was it also done in a funeral? Let us not mock the dead here. We are not here to spread propaganda. When we speak of William Ruto corruption, it is not only something that is in the public domain, it is something we witness every time we drive on Langata Road. UDA, if we are saying the president is guilty of supporting a NASA principle, who is the chief sponsor of UDA? Who celebrates when UDA wins a seat? Who does firirinda when UDA wins a seat?
I think
that was the question. Now let me say that this country is in a debt crisis. You know, I find it laughable when we say we are in a debt crisis. First, let us define a debt crisis. Because there are countries that have suffered debt crisis. I will give you the example of Argentina. Argentina was in a debt crisis. The first pointer of a debt crisis is runaway inflation. Kenya's inflation has held below 7% even during the pandemic. Kenya's GDP grew by 1% during the pandemic. That is what is called a resilient economy. Yesterday, we floated Eurobond. We wanted $1 billion US. It was oversubscribed by 5 billion.
But man,
now just wait.
Just wait.
Just wait. Let me finish.
Yes.
The way you know whether you are economically sound or not is based on whether the bank can give you money or not. Because the bank's job is to tell you whether you're liquid or not. The World Bank, the IMF, every Bretton Woods organization says Kenya is in sound footing. Now, of course, you want to go into the question of what about the pockets of Kenyans. Let me remind the viewers at home and everyone here that we are a developing country. That means from 1963 and the mistakes we've done in our past, there's a large swath of this country that faces poverty. It has nothing to do with the debt issues of this country. Because if you are going to lift a population out of poverty, you've got to ask the questions of what are the building blocks of getting people out of poverty. That is infrastructure. It is electrification. It is access to education. Now, if you ask and tell me that the government is not doing those things, is not making education more available, is not building roads so that people in Mandera can access the economy, then we will have an argument. Finally, let me put it like this. The ideology that is Tanga aims to explore the ignorance and the poverty of the people and give them hopes that do not exist. The other day they said they are going back to Kibakinomics, that they are going to go do bottom-up economics. They don't have half a paragraph to explain bottom-up economics. But my final question to Joe, as you go back to Kibakinomics, because that's what you want to praise, who was, pray tell, Kibaki's finance minister? Wasn't it Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta? So why was he such a brilliant minister who you want to copy then? And now you're saying he's useless and you want to go back to his principles then?
We cannot talk about a cabinet secretary who failed to explain where 9 billion disappeared to and told us it's a computer error. So forget about that question.
No, but you're going
then
back
the
to
next
economics.
The next one is this. Mark, if truly what you are saying the government is doing, building roads, exporting more, and every infrastructure development we are seeing actually in this town, do we need a BBI to do those things? Because those things are happening without BBI. So do we need BBI? That is a simple question.
I think
then
the
second
is not
one
about BBI.
because that is a flip one on certain things that he raised.
Yeah.
Because he said
Your thoughts have tangatangad kabisa, but that's true
because
to pop.
he said, for simple reason, he said.
Let's stick to the topic. I
Yes.
mean, the topic here is the loggerhead, the president and his deputy being at loggerheads, and how that is affecting the country in terms of achieving its vision, economics, and delivering to its people. And I think the question now is, if there was this rift between the deputy president and the president, would we be seeing even much more? And can the deputy president also claim credit on the things that Mark Bichache has said the president is doing today within his government?
When I started, I said the president and the deputy president are having, from where I sit, their difference is on principle. And it is on one issue. Why do we need to change the priorities of Jubilee government from the big four and transforming the lives of Kenyans into BBI? That is the difference between the president and the deputy president.
But I've just demonstrated.
And one thing I've said is this. And what I've said is this.
Yeah.
I've asked him a simple question.
Yeah.
If he claims that there are constructions going on, the country is moving on in the right direction, then I've asked him, do we need the BBI? Because listen, and I need to explain myself further on this. Because if the country is moving in the right trajectory...
First of all, you're saying if. Do you agree that the country is moving in the right direction?
Give me an indicator that it's going in the wrong direction.
Is it going in the right direction or wrong direction?
The country is going on the wrong direction.
Based on which indicator?
And I have my reasons. One, the president has moved away from the priorities that as a Jubilee government, they were supposed to perform. Second of all, this is the issue. You cannot be having a president whom, in a court of law, most of the issues that are going there, they are being declared unconstitutional. He's performing functions or he's directing functions that are unconstitutional. And the person swore to protect the Constitution. So the country in that direction is not going in the right direction.
But there's a person who swore to support and deputize and support.
But he has given his advice. He has assisted the president whenever he's needed. But the president seems to not needing his advice and his support. You see?
Please tell us your indicator on the economy.
No.
Give us an indicator.
On the economy, this is actually how, Mark, you need to really put things into perspective. Because we can use fancy language here, but the common mwananchi at the end of the day will tell you the economy is not doing very well. For simple reason. Today, the debt crisis has affected the structure of our economy. In simple language. If you look at the budget that was read the other week, we have 1 trillion deficit. Out of the 100% we collect revenue, 70%, 60% is supposed to go and pay debt. So we cannot, the remaining money that we have, around 400 billion or 600 billion, cannot sustain the government. Because if you look at our wage bill is 700 billion. So even we borrow to pay salaries in this country. So then you tell me the economy is doing very well.
So the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto is driving the country in the wrong direction. Is this what you're saying?
Yes, but the buck stops with the president.
Oh, okay.
And Ruto is innocent.
Ruto is innocent.
Not that Ruto is innocent, but I'm saying the buck stops with the president. There's somebody who carries the highest responsibility.
Okay. Betty, your thoughts?
Well, a couple of things, because we are like jumbling up, issues here. One, on the debt issue, it is very clear Kenya is in debt, yes, but we are not in a debt crisis. That needs to come out very clearly. There is no government in the land of the living that does not have debt. Even the US government, the superpower of the world, today has debt, right? So the fact that Kenya has debt and the fact that the lenders have the confidence to provide the debt is a clear indication that we have an economy that can pay back, an economy that is resilient, and an economy that can bounce back. We need the debt to develop. We need the debt to build the infrastructure, and all these things eventually result into better living conditions, more and increased access to opportunities and services, and higher quality of services. If you look at education, you look at health, some of the critical ones. Number two, the narrative that His Excellency, the President, in isolation, has moved from his own Big Four agenda, and now is focusing on BBI, which is not a priority of the Jubilee government in the current term, if I got my fellow panelists very well. Now that is not true at all, because the president, in my mind, is clear in his own mind what he promised the people. He clearly articulated the Big Four agenda, where he's going to start and where he's going to reach. And he was clear in that vision. And we are seeing every single day, I don't have to repeat what my fellow panelist has already said, giving specific examples on the progress that is being made in the Big Four agenda. Kenya needed BBI. And in my understanding, BBI is not replacing anything. BBI is not replacing Big Four agenda. BBI, on the contrary, is augmenting the government, is hopes to augment and just make better what is already happening. Now, the narrative of the bottom up, looking at the person at the lowest level, the Mama Mboga, that young person who has a degree but has no job, and so on and so forth. What is the BBI talking about? That is what the BBI is about. The BBI is about making it better for the people, making it better for everyone, including that person who is actually down there. The proposals for young people in the BBI, proposals for women, in the BBI, touching on that Mama Mboga, it's clearly written, right there. For me, perhaps, the BBI issue is not really BBI. The BBI from the people who are against it could be just the question of what happens, within the executive. If the executive is the issue, speak about that. But don't say BBI has come in to replace. Even right now, we are seeing what's happening in Uhuru Highway every single day. That is infrastructure that is being developed. But the principal assistant to the president cannot come out and say that I am now here, the other guy is there. If it is good, it's good for both of you. If it is bad for both of you. You cannot remove yourself. You cannot say, I told him and he did not do. Yeah. Well, the president is the head of state, and there's only one head of state. Yeah. They can't be two. Yeah. But he can have several advisors and so on and so forth. But once an executive decision has been made by the head of state, it behooves everyone within that structure, starting from the so-called principal assistant, to move in the same vision.
Right. I'm going to come to you, but Mark, you'll chip into what they've said, but I would love you to also kindly jump in on this particular issue. Let's look at our constitution and the current state of affairs, the situation where the president and his deputy are at loggerheads. We know that there have to be a presidential candidate and a running mate. Do you think that the constitution in its form is partly to blame on what we are seeing today? Because I remember there was a time when there are those who argued and said the deputy president cannot resign because he's not an appointee of the president. He was also elected. He also brought his bag of votes and contributed to the current formation of the current government. If we were in the previous days of the old constitution, perhaps the president would have already fired the deputy president.
First and foremost, functionally speaking, the president has no deputy. Because to have a deputy is to have someone who, when you're falling, can support you, not thank God and celebrate when the High Court goes rogue on you. You know, it's like you go home, you've been fired, then you find your wife throwing a party celebrating how you've been fired and has called the pastor to give him a tithe. So he doesn't have a deputy. But he can resign because within the article of the Constitution that talks about the role of the deputy president, it actually articulates how a deputy president can exit, and one of them is resignation. Now, why is resignation important? And I liked that Joe said that it's about principle. The principle is this. If I am on this show and I don't believe in what this show is doing, then it behooves me to pull away from the show so that my approval for the show is withdrawn. I cannot sit in the show, disprove of the show, talk badly about your glasses, Joe's shirt and Betty's dress and everything, and then remain on the show. It cannot work. Now, the deputy president is one who believes in the Bible. So let me quote a few verses for him. Jesus said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And the Bible also says two cannot walk together unless they agree. The reason why Jubilee is suffering is simply because the two have refused to work together. But the question then is, how do they get to work together? That is then a question of who condescends to who submits to who. If the president is the one to submit to the deputy president, then let him tell us so, that the president has to agree with me because I have seniority. But as the order of things go, if we were to follow African tradition, biblical tradition, or indeed the letter and the spirit of the Constitution, then the deputy president has no choice than to condescend to his boss. The lack of respect cannot be equated to the imaginary mistreatment. Because the mistreatment we are talking about does not exist. Does not exist. Because when I see Ruto's motorcade, it is the same.
Yes, transferring functions, I mean, the functions that
let me tell you, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. You want to fight corruption. Your deputy does not want to fight corruption. You want to fight Sonko. Sonko moves to Karen. You want to fight Waititu. Waititu, the next day, your deputy is saying, your 9 billion haikupotea kokote. It's on record, he said it. So, do you want to give that person responsibility? You want to do BBI. Your deputy is against BBI. Do you want to give him that job? Number 3, Big 4, the other day, wasn't the deputy president saying that there was more done in 2013 than it was done now? So he's also functionally campaigning against. Now my question is, which of the president's agenda is William Ruto even interested in? Because even the economics, which every indicator other than the ones they imagine, because every time you tell them to give you a number, they tell you wacha kizungu nyingi, the person on the street. My friend, the person on the street will always feel pain. I'm a businessman. I'm in pain today. There's a client who's not paid me. By the way, if you're watching, please pay me. You understand? I'm in pain. Yeah. I can blame the government. I can say, by the way, if the government had paid that person, I'd be rich. So we are not going to have street level conversations, and we're trying to inform the public. But you see, the problem is this: you can only assign duties to someone whose heart and spirit is with you. Joe Kalende here represents the DP. When I ask him to say anything good happening in this economy, he can't. Simply because the foundation upon which Tanga Tanga is preset, number one, what was their first tagline? Hustlers versus dynasties. In this country, if you talk about dynasties, you're only talking about Uhuru Kenyatta because he's the only son of a former president. Raila doesn't even qualify in the dynasty qualification. Yeah. So how do you insult your boss every day and then come back and complain, why have I not been given a job? So he should give you a job to insult you, insulter in chief.
Right.
And say, walevi, by the way, wakisema mlevi, who do they mean? Wakisema mchawi, who do they mean? You see, you can't be backstabbing someone and then come and say, oh, I'm being mistreated. Come on, you want to stick a knife in my back and then I turn around and kiss you?
Yeah. Joe, when you speak to your friends within the now called Tanga Tanga wing or movement, or even say UDA,
wheelbarrow.
Or wheelbarrow, for lack of a better word, why do they tell you, or what reason do they give you when you ask about the DP resigning in principle? What do they tell you? What is the reason? Why can't he resign?
Why should the DP resign?
Because he doesn't agree with his boss. That's why you resign.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, you know, you cannot, if you want to understand the genesis of, or if you want to understand why that question is always asked about the only person to resign is the deputy president. Why not the president? You need to take a step back and look at where these things started. In 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto forms a government through TNA, through a coalition between TNA and URP. Yeah. In 2017, they decided to form a national party. A national party including other 10 political parties. So after the election of 2017, some people decide that, by the way, we made a yako kumi, yangu kumi promise, a national issue, and actually by 2022, we are supposed to hand this government to the deputy president.
So we're looking at bitterness.
Not bitterness.
Our failed promises.
The underlying problem is our politics of deceit, politics of conmanship, politics of twisting others. What Mark is trying to do is trying to justify the reasons why they want to kick out the deputy president, or the reason why they kicked out the deputy president. And we know all of these theatrics. But the main reason is this. After 2017, certain quarters, certain forces decided that they are not going to hand over the government to the deputy president come 2022. That is the problem. And time has revealed to us that at the end of the day, the President Uhuru Kenyatta was not going to endorse the deputy president. So even the rift between the president and the deputy president, it was a rift that was artificial. This is a systematic scheme. But my pain as a common mwananchi, somebody who believed in the foundation of Jubilee, is that we have killed a national political party that had brought all Kenyans together. And now we had killed tribalism within Jubilee. We were discussing issues in Jubilee. We were not discussing which region do you come from within the Jubilee context. So at the end of the day, the issue is the politics of deceit, politics of conmanship, politics where we do not believe in any principle.
Let me ask you this.
And you can look at it the other way.
Yeah.
Today, you don't respect any court order as the president. You do things unconstitutional. Then you claim that you can amend the constitution to better the lives of Kenyans when you do not believe in the rule of law. You are lying to Kenyans.
So why still work with such a person?
Not work with such a person. This scheme comes from them, not William Ruto. Okay. William Ruto did not want to kick himself out of the government.
Yeah.
It is them, the Kieleweke, who wanted to kick William Ruto out of the government.
Betty hasn't spoken for a long while.
I just wonder how you sleep with that same brain, because your left and right side are not working together. But Betty, please.
Betty, you know, Betty, for us to move this conversation forward, also I'm being told within the interest of time, there are those who also feel, I mean, Charity Gill has come out, and not Charity Gill, the Machakos County Governor, Dr. Mutua, says that the more we talk about William Ruto, the more we're actually campaigning for him. We're making him even bigger. Not we, not me, but those who are actually talking about Ruto, left, right, and center. Do you think that this is the scheme, this is the strategy from the Tanga wing, that let's make him, talked about every time? It's not yet time to resign. It's not time to leave, because you'll not get any political capital out of that move if you are to do it at this particular time. Do you see it coming at some point? Because Joe says, why would he resign? Why should he resign? But do you prophesy? Let's see your prophecy skills. You know, do you see him resigning at some point?
Personally, I don't. And here is my reason. When you're complaining about all these things that my fellow panelist has confirmed that he's complaining about, the noble thing really is to walk away. Yeah. He only has two options, according to me. Either figure out how to work with your boss, push this boat towards the same direction, or walk away. But you can't have your cake, and eat it. But let's look at what he stands to gain or lose, by staying on and vis-a-vis, leaving. One, if he leaves, what happens? He becomes an ordinary Kenyan, right? All the clout, all the security, all these things, he can figure out his own, but he's not within the system. Although personally, I think he should actually just resign and go now, come out, full blast, and just speak up your mind and do whatever it is you need to do. Number two, remember, he came in on the same ticket, Jubilee ticket, as His Excellency, the President, who is, the head of state. And when you continuously, have or propel a narrative that you're against your boss, and we are also seeing your actions and your own direct utterances not being quoted by people, you yourself suggesting that you are not pulling in the same direction, then time is really up. For me, the best thing the DP should do is to walk out of the system and figure out a way in which he can work with other people, and also look at the historical journey of this country and figure out ways in which he can back, someone else for posterity, of this country, and just move forward. Or stay like that and maybe, shoot to be the official opposition leader in Kenya. But what is important for Kenyans right now is to figure out ways in which they can bounce back, because COVID has hit people, left, right, and center. Yeah. We need to redirect, the narrative to the real issues, right? Yeah. Let's talk about the corruption of this country. Yeah. Let's talk about the kind of leadership that we even want our young people, to look up to and emulate. Yeah. What is that? Is it a leadership of a subordinate, circumventing his boss? That's not the kind of mentorship you want to give, to other young people. Let us look at now, we are heading into 2022, regardless, BBI or no BBI, referendum or not referendum, 2022 is staring at us. Do we want to move into that phase, of a general election as divided as we are? Do we want to move in there as confused as we are? Do we want to move in there with a whole bunch of guys from the Tanga side continuing to confuse the Kenyans who really want to get the right information and move forward the right way? For me, I think the most noble thing to do is either ship up or ship out.
Ship up or ship out. Mark, there are those who say that it's unfair to tell the DP that he's campaigning too early when we don't have much time left for 2022 elections, if the other potential or aspiring candidates are still in bed, not yet out campaigning. It is not his fault. This is what some people are saying. The president himself has nothing to lose because he's not standing for another the election. So your thoughts on that line of thought? That it's okay for him to campaign because there's no timeline in this sense.
The Constitution is clear. The campaign period is 6 months to an election. If we want to be clear about the total wastage of time that we go through this country, is we finish an election and then our politicians start campaigning again. Thank God that most of the politicians actually listened to the president. The only politician who didn't, and his crusade, is William Ruto. That being said, we're in the campaign period. And in that campaign period, there is a key question. And the question is, do the voters owe William Ruto a debt? That the last 10 years, Ruto sacrificed, and therefore it is conmanship for him not to be endorsed again. The first term was a coalition term. There was an agreement. And in that agreement, there were certain seats, certain positions that were allocated to URP. Was that promise kept? Yes. In the second administration, did William Ruto get the seats he was promised? Yes. The mistake that we're making is acting as if it is supposed to be a coronation. They don't want to hand over to Ruto. Ruto has not won any election to be handed over to. But there's one question, and it's a question of morality and the rectitude of the person of the president. And he said a statement which I would like to co-sign myself to associate myself with. The president cannot and will not endorse a thief to take over this country. He will not. And on that, I agree with him. Now, there is the issue of purportedly a president who's not obeying court orders. Let me educate the citizenry here. When the High Court ruled that the president should appoint the judges, it did not give him a date. He can do it whenever he pleases. If there is a date in 2 weeks, in a month, that the president has broken, let's talk. But there is none. Number two, you're not in violation of the Constitution if there is an appeal process. What Tanga keeps doing is they get one ruling and forget, but all of these cases they're saying the president has broken the Constitution on are in court. And number two, he's not broken any timeline. If the courts tell me, for example, that I should go home and not tell me which day, which year I should go home, I am not in violation of the Constitution. But what Tanga does, and I give them massive credit, is if you talk BBI, there's a document to discuss. If you talk economics, we've got GDP numbers, we've got export numbers, we've got infrastructure numbers to talk about. This wheelbarrow, this hustler versus dynasty, this top-bottom-up economics, they don't even have a single paper to be submitted for us to review.
Is it true, Joe?
Let him finish.
It's not there.
Yeah.
This is a very dangerous movement, for it is a populist movement aimed at attacking the emotions of the people while brainwashing them. And the problem is this, and this is what I would like to warn my country. Be careful of the candy man. Be careful of the leader who tells you with him everything is candy. There is never a stick of correction. There is never a point where he will say, I stand by the virtue that I will not in good conscience approve 6 judges who I know are wrong. Someone who can stand by virtue and say, there is half of my country that clapped when there was someone who was appointing himself the people's president. Who will stand by the virtue and say, I have insulted this person before, I will not insult again. We've not had Uhuru Kenyatta say Mudumugoroki. He's not even insulted his deputy, who insults him and calls him Wanjohi every day.
But he said Mwizi, sitacha Mwizi.
No, that is not an insult. You see, if I call a cow, have I insulted the cow?
Okay. Can we have Joe now? Joe, I mean, the question I wanted also to understand is that item that Mark mentions of political debt mentality. You know, you owe us. If you don't give me, you know, it means it's conmanship. And where we are heading as a country, there are those who even argue that our Game of Thrones is so boring that we are predicting. We know the players that will be playing. We know the people that will be putting themselves in there. Must it be Deputy President William Ruto 2022?
To answer your earlier question, if there is a paper on bottom-up economics, yes, there is a paper towards new bottom-up economic model, an issue paper written by none other than David Ndii. And it basically illustrates what is trickle-down, what is bottom-up approach, the 3 pillars that a bottom-up approach is built on, that is income, employment, and income creation.
On the next show, we'll definitely have excerpts of this.
There is also state and governance.
Where they can download
and where can it be downloaded?
Where can they download it?
Yes.
It's our paper.
It's internal.
We are still going through it. We are still. You see, one thing that Mark need to understand is that we have triggered a conversation in this country. And we do not want people to clap for this thing called bottom-up economics. We want people to interrogate it. And so that at the end of the day, people can hold the deputy president in 2022 accountable.
Interrogate it and you have it. So how we...
Not to interrogate it and have it. Are you a member of UDA?
We've not seen it.
The members of UDA have it. If you are not a member of UDA, please relax.
This could be said the same way as those who had the BBI document, because they were asked about the document and they kept saying, we have the document. So in the same respect, is there a plan to have this released? So
yes, it is work in progress, my brother. Then your question, pardon your question?
Yeah. So the question is on the issue of political debts. You know, there seems to be a debt that has to be settled. You know, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga also still says, actually, you guys owe me more than anybody else. Deputy President William Ruto, there are those who say he was promised Uhuru 10, we were 10. And you define this as conmanship, deceit. Must it be the Deputy President William Ruto?
I don't want to approach in that angle. I don't want to be an enforcer of political debts. But what I want to say is this: we need to change our culture. Because in 2010, as Kenyans, we agreed that we are going to have a new constitution, which is a transformative constitution, where Kenyans recognize that we are coming from a dark era. We want to be ushered into a new era. And not just only in terms of governance, but also in terms of how we do our politics. And that's why the Office of Registrar of Political Parties is there. That's why in any coalition, you must deposit your agreement with the Registrar of Political Parties so that some of those things can be enforced and at least be done, so that we do not go back to the famous MOU of 2002. But what we have seen is that the politics in this country has deliberately refused to move into a new era. This is not just a problem of Tanga accusing Kieleweke or Kieleweke accusing Tanga. This is actually how our politics is done. And for simple reason, if you ask yourself, what is the structure within the operation of Okoa Kenya, Okoa and the NASA and the politics around it? You will come at the end of the day and realize it's just the normal theatrics in our political scenario.
Since they're not here, let's talk about UDA and where you represent. I mean,
from where I sit with UDA
and how you're changing the political
and the Hustler Nation, it is that we are going to change the conversation going forward. And for two reasons. One, let us have politics that is centered on issue base, not ethnic balkanization, not tribal arithmetic. Two, we want a government that respects the Constitution, respects the rule of law. We do not want a government where people feel entitled because I'm a son of a former president. No. We want a country where every citizen and his work, whether he's a Mambamboga, whether he's a hustler, his work must be respected. In this country, we have a government where the Cabinet Secretary of Interior criminalized the boda sector. But at the end of the day, the budget that was read out the other day, you realize that taxes have been increased on motorcycles. So on one side, you want to dissociate yourself from the small, medium enterprise that your citizens are being involved. On the other side, you want to tax them. Those are the things that we need to clear, and that is the conversation that we need to have. At the end of the day, we cannot claim that our bottom-up approach is the best. But we need to be interrogated. We need Kenyans to be part and parcel of this conversation. However difficult it is, we are going to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, the people who are criticizing Hustler Nation should also provide an alternative. And if the alternative is grouping tribal kingpins so that they can elect one demigod where everybody should worship, we are not going to be part and parcel of that arrangement.
Right. Betty, what's the alternative that the KANU party is offering, as Joe is actually saying? When you criticize, offer an alternative. What's the alternative from where you sit?
The KANU party is revamping its structures across the country. KANU party is the only party that doesn't have bedroom, so to speak. We are everywhere. We have been everywhere since independence, and our bedroom is Kenya. So what we are offering to Kenyans is an opportunity to come in as a young person, as a woman, as a Kenyan, to occupy a leadership position right from the polling station, all the way up, and get into that boat and that house, and let's also have conversations around what's ailing us, as a people. Within the KANU party, we also subscribe to issue-based politics, but we are also not naive and blind to the nature of the Kenyan politics. Truth be told, our politics are very tribal, our politics are very regional, and in Kenya, when it comes to politics, the first question you need to answer is the numbers. All right? That's the reality. And we also say that every Kenyan, has an equal or should be given an equal opportunity to occupy a leadership position. It does not matter if you're the son of a president or the daughter of it doesn't matter, because the bottom line equation is, are you a Kenyan? Yes. Are you protected by the same constitution? Yes. Do you have the same rights as everyone else? The answer is yes. But we also want to go to another level of looking at specific cohorts within our population. We want to look at the marginalized communities. We want to look at women. We want to look at young people. We want to look at persons who are living, with disability. We want to move from, Mandera up north all the way to Kitale, all the way to Lamu, all the way to Mboni Forest, and just ask the question, how can we, be of help? How can we work together and put solutions that would work for every person. Yeah. So the other alternative we are having is, like I've said, alternative leadership right from polling station, all the way up. But we're also saying that we are real, to the issues facing women. We are real to the issues facing young people. And as a party, we are putting in structures that would offer, alternative opportunities for access. The kind of access that young people are looking for to opportunities. We are in there and we are working our heads off to ensure that, some of these plans are also rolled out. But our door is very, very open to anybody out there who's looking, for a progressive, party that is KANU. We have revamped. We can only get better.
Yeah, but the question, Betty, is up there at the top. This is where people are having questions, and someone like you who actually ticks all the boxes that you mentioned is not being seen anywhere close to the people who are seeking top office from the KANU party. Are you not promoting the continuation of this thing that people are calling the boring kind of politics of Kenya, where we already know is the same faces, is the same people? Kwani wengine wako wapi? Why are you not standing for president?
If people are asking, why? I'll give myself as an example. 2 weeks ago, I have just been nominated by our national party chairman to be the national chairperson of KANU Women Congress. Yeah. Is that not progress? Okay. From my name, you can tell. Yeah. You can tell where I come from. But to answer the other question in terms of our top leadership, before COVID sort of like lockdowns, we are on record as a party as having been led by our own national chairperson, going county by county, spreading the BBI message, educating people on what BBI is and also what it is not, because we are believers in the BBI and we are working hand in hand in coalition with the ruling Jubilee Party as a party ourselves. That is one. Yeah. Secondly, you have seen our party leader going out, reaching out to other party leaders as well. I mean, you have to start from somewhere. As also Senator for Baringo, and party leader for KANU, he is going out there, reaching out to other party leaders. He has reached out to Baba. He has reached out to, the ANC party leader. He has also reached out to Kalonzo. He's reached out to Weta and all these other leaders. So our position is we want to embrace everyone. And we want to figure out ways in which we can all work together and come up with a formidable plan getting into 2022 and figuring out ways in which everyone could feel, included in the space where KANU actually, is occupying. But we are moving fast. We are moving aggressively in setting up our footprints across the country and just ensuring that when those meetings are held, when those round table meetings are also held, wherever they are held, the voice of KANU is on the table.
Yeah, Mark is going to come in shortly, but when people say that, probably that's just a strategy for KANU, it's a survival strategy for KANU, because the party probably is no longer that relevant to just be a formidable force on its own. UDA just the other day, I know the supporters feel like the party is so strong. It's ready to go for the elections, even if it were to be called tomorrow. How does that make you feel? And also as a mother, we've had people talk about the coalition that your party leader is in as a Cerelac coalition. I mean, what does that make you feel?
Well, you're right. I'm a mother and I'm a woman and I'm a Kenyan and I'm a leader. Yeah. So let me combine like all those factors together. Yeah. Look, KANU is the oldest party. That's a fact. Yes. No one can take that away from us. Yeah. KANU had its time in glory, in leadership of this country. A lot of what we have today, was started off when KANU, was in power. And when the late President Moi sort of like left power, retired from politics, then truth be told, the party kind of like took a nosedive, down. But it was not a dead party. KANU has never been dead. KANU will never be dead. KANU will, in fact, rule for 100 years, and mark my words on that. Now, we are at a point that every electioneering period, KANU participates. KANU has fielded candidates, across the country in every other successive elections. But 2022 is unique for us. Unique for a variety of reasons. One, we are under, a new political, constitutional dispensation. And secondly, we will have had like 10 years of devolution. I mean, that's a good time to throw yourself as a party into that ring to see and take stock on how, devolution has worked or not worked for us.
Yeah.
And we are actually in the process, and we've made some great strides towards that. In fact, if you look at potential presidential candidates, our party chairman, Gideon Moi, is the one who, in our view, has made the greatest, climb, if you like, in terms of just coming out and saying, hey, we are also here, we are still here, and we want to occupy our space. We can only get better. We can only do better. We have a lot more work to do in KANU, probably compared to other parties. I don't know. But we are also saying, and being real, that there's no single party that can clinch the presidency in Kenya. It can't work, in the current dispensation where we are. But we as a party are saying that we are out there. We are here. And we want to work with every other person who also wants to work, with us, so that we figure out ways in which we can make, a formidable force going forward. Cerelac.
Yes.
The name Cerelac.
Yes.
It's like, a child's food.
Yes.
Now, we have to start from somewhere. I think bottom line, that's our message. We have to start from somewhere, and we're also appreciating that we are not the only players. There are other players in this field. To me, the Cerelac movement is just like step one. A child has to start, from class 1, class 2, and eventually graduate. So we are making strides, and we are reaching out, to other like-minded political leaders of Kenya, talking about things that ail, our country, and ways in which they can be put together. But it is work in progress, and I'm thinking over the next couple of months, you're going to see more from us.
Right. Mark, you probably have the last word, unless if the other two panelists will have very brief, submissions to make in closing. Mark, do you see a surprise in 2022? Already the minds of many have been programmed to just see either Raila on the box, Ruto on the box, Gideon Moi on the box, probably Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka. These are names that we've had over decades. Are you seeing a potential surprise? We have Mohisa Kitui, just the other day he came. Other players are also saying they want to jump into the race. Are you seeing a surprise, or we are expecting the normal people we've been seeing again back into office come 2022?
Allow me to correct a misnomer.
Yeah.
People who don't have a document, and the document they claim to have is held secret.
Mark, you have to go back to that.
No, let me finish.
Yes.
And is held secret and kept under lock and key, as though it's a Masonic document. Cannot then stand and say that people who have a document, who have a philosophy, who know which laws need to be changed, which parts of the constitution need to be changed, what actually needs to be done for Mama Mboga, people who have BBI, to give them an alternative. Stop joking. You give us an alternative. We have a document. You don't. So don't ask us for an alternative. Our route is BBI. That said, let me give you prediction number one. BBI was not about a referendum. It was an idea. Whether there is a referendum or not, parliamentary initiative or not, the issues laid out in the BBI are the issues any president will have to deal with. How much money is going to devolution is going to be dealt with. The role of MCAs in development is going to be dealt with. The issue of women representation in parliament is going to be dealt with. You need to understand that William Ruto is on record. He does not oppose BBI, he opposes referendum. Those two things are different. That said, my prediction, crystal ball for 2022, if there is no BBI, Mudavadi will run and probably run towards Tanga Tanga. That's prediction number one. Prediction number two is unless Raila Amolo Odinga steps down and says so and so Tosha, he's going to be on the ballot. The question that will have to be answered is, will Central Kenya join Rift Valley again? Because in as much as William Ruto will say he's not a tribal kingpin, the only places where BBI did not pass speak the same language as mother tongue as William. He is a tribal kingpin, masquerading as a hustler. And I wish all the chicken sellers equal success to him, because apparently the path is chicken. So my prediction is this: it's going to be a two-horse race. William versus Raila, Raila versus William.
Or Mudavadi.
The winner, no, Mudavadi is going to run to Tangatanga.
Oh, he's going to go that direction. Yeah.
The winner will be determined by how much of Central still hates Raila Odinga. That's the question.
Okay.
At least,
1 minute.
At least he has confirmed that the document is BBI, which is unconstitutional, which is dead on arrival.
It's an appeal.
Well, the document was not declared unconstitutional.
Yeah,
Let me teach you law.
So
the process was declared unconstitutional. And by the way, I am free to take the document and begin a popular initiative. So it is not illegal.
If the court declared the process unconstitutional, then at the end of the day, the document is as good as the process, or is as bad as the process. So it is also unconstitutional.
Joe, give us your last thought. I mean, do you see any surprises? I mean, we've talked about the challenges that the two leaders are facing today. Where do we move from here? What are your predictions moving forward? What do we do now as a nation?
The only surprise that we are waiting is from the other group, the Serelak coalition, if it will manage to bring in Raila Amolo Odinga, or it will not manage. And another surprise maybe is if at the end of the day, the president decide to endorse, because we just heard that he said he will endorse one of the NASA principles. But at the end of the day, if he will come out and support and go through that process of campaign, while campaigning the person that you have decided to support.
But don't you think it was a bit of an overreaction by the deputy president quoting a statement on a newspaper? I mean, the newspaper could be wrong. I mean, was it that an overreaction from your boss or the person you
see,
support?
politics is a game where you need to be right on time, and you need to take an opportunity if it presents itself. So that's what he did. As an experienced politician, I will look at it in that way, because an opportunity presented itself where you need to draw a line, where you need to put it outside there that this is now the real problem. And this is why we are taking certain direction.
Right.
Yes.
Betty, again, just close again. Do we see any potential dangers in the loggerhead nature of the two principals, two leaders of the country? Or are we going to ride with this wave until 2022 and nothing will happen as a country?
Personally, I don't see a danger because His Excellency, the head of state, is fully in command and in control of the affairs of the government. Mine is just to appeal to all of us as a people to give him the chance and the opportunity to finish the last 1 year or so left of his administration, and work with him to see ways in which he's going to handle the transition, because a transition will happen according to the laws of the land. Secondly, I also just wanted to say that in terms of surprises, for me, I see my party KANU playing a very, very big role. My party KANU bouncing back, in a big way. And mark my words, that's going to be the surprise.
All right.
Yes.
So, Max ulimaliza.
No, let me give my last statement.
Okay, the very last one. Yeah.
There's a saying in politics that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And for convenience, Tanga is in bed with the judiciary. I'd like to give them a very nice warning. The judiciary is not attacking Uhuru. It is shackling the presidency. Uhuru will not be president forever. The rulings being made now will have more impact on the next president than they do on Uhuru. And as they celebrate, let them also to remember to dance on their graves when these new friends of theirs bite them where it hurts.
Okay. Right. I think that's
Thank
it. No
you.
one else has something
Yeah,
else to
thank
add
you
now,
so
right?
much.
But thank you very much. Joe, Apana, we'll actually kill the mics right now. Thank you so much for actually taking time to be part of this conversation on The Bottom Line KE right here on Look Up TV. If we did not meet your expectations, we sincerely apologize and we hope to actually better next time. But we'd love to hear from you. The hashtag is The Bottom Line KE. Keep talking to us. We'll definitely be able to rope in some of those ideas and some of those thoughts that are coming your way. It's been a great conversation. We hope to have more like this and even better in the subsequent Mondays to come. Asante sana. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.